We'll go ahead and get rolling here. I'm just going to fill in and kind of jump in ahead of Tom. I told Tom I'd throw him a little lifesaver. I know everybody will probably be half asleep, so I'll do my best to try and entertain to keep you from dozing off after lunch. We're going to talk here just real quickly. I want to talk about black swan hunting. I think it's just kind of fun. Just the term's kind of unique. Obviously, black swan hunting, everyone knows it's trying to predict the unpredictable. I mean, let's be realistic. How good are we at that? I really don't know. I would say we're not very good. But I think we need to start factoring this into our marketing plan. And that's what I talked about, having a secondary or backup plan in case. I think most of you know, some of the guys I was working with, we went skiing last year, took the kids out to Copper Mountain. We get up there. As soon as I put the key into the door, turn on TV, tsunami hits in Japan. I'm on the phone the entire trip. My wife's kind of like, you got to be kidding me. See, so that was a black swan type event, not only for the market, but for the family. So 2 weeks later, I had to take another vacation, I think, to make up for that vacation. So kind of hit me double time. But, you know, we can just never predict what's going to happen. We tried to do our best. I think it's tough. But I think somewhere in your marketing plan, or somewhere in there, you got to have a little bit of an idea or where some possible black swan events are going to take place. These, unfortunately, I was out talking in the last couple months, these black swan events have already kind of started to unravel here. So I'm not sure how black swan-y they are right now, but they're definitely events we need to watch as we move forward here. Here's really the main four I'm just going to quickly touch on and to give some guys an idea of why it's such an interesting aspect and what we need to pay attention to. Global debt, I think everyone knows we're going to go to the, I'm not going to tell you anything you don't know, with higher protein levels, the world population going to 9.5 billion, and here we go. I mean, a good number to understand in that regards. We're adding about 200,000 people a day is what we're adding. So I like to listen to it. It makes a little bit more sense. I get into that million, billion, trillion thing. I never did have much luck getting my hands around. I told you guys last year, you ask your boss for 1 million seconds off work, you're off about 2 weeks. 1 billion seconds, you know, they say we'll see you back in 31 years. You ask for 1 trillion seconds, it's 31,000 years. I mean, that gives you an idea. The government throws around trillions like it's, you know, no big deal. So I think there's a huge big deal taking place, and the huge big deal is obviously with the global debt, the art of printing money. We're at 80 trillion. We went from 80 trillion to 210 trillion in 9 years. The way that this thing is tightly sprung, I'm telling you now, is a huge, huge issue. You'll hear folks like Andy and Emily and the rest of the very well-educated traders in the business. They have a hard time getting extremely bullish for one reason, right here. They can't get their hands around the logic of this nonsense. How can we be spending so much more than we have? How can we be doing it? How can we be leveraging to this extreme? Be careful getting yourself super tripped up in that thought. The market's trading on a different sphere, so to speak, right now, I would say. The market is already trading on a sphere that's taking this into account. So be careful if you just want to be doom and gloomy. Certainly there is the chance that we could have some type of unspiraling. The reason that the European banks are in the headlines and they are so important is because of the leverage that's associated with the European banks. The regulations and requirements are a lot less stringent than the U.S. banks. Therefore, you see money and what we would call speculative money or hot money flow to those regions. And if it unwinds or unravels, there would certainly be some reduction of long positions across the board, so to speak. There would be some risk-off reductions. Italy, a great example is Italy, I'd say, going from hero to a zero in 6 months. You take the 10-year from a yield of 5% to 6%, 1% move, and all of a sudden Italy, holy smokes, the wheels are flying off and we're crashing and burning. That is what we're in. That is the environment we're in. I have to believe, though, traders have become much more callous to it. Greece is ridiculous. It's a joke. There's no question. But the market's become callous to it to some degree. I don't think you're going to have a Bear Stearns type of debacle. I don't think you're going to see those type of Lehman Brothers things play out in this environment for one reason only. I think because we've seen that before. I think the central banks and some of the world banks were caught a little off guard. They didn't know how to handle it. They didn't know what to do. I'm not saying what they're doing now is right or correct, but I do know this, that they're somewhat prepared to an extent, and they are trying to curtail the issues and the fallout from that. So if you want to stay and lean bearish and just continue to be bearish because of this, market might leave you behind. So understand this is a factor, and it could create a hiccup. Will it? That's anyone's guess right now. But that is certainly one we need to watch. I think a great line is capitalism without bankruptcy is like Christianity without hell. Understand, some of these countries are going to have to go broke. They're going to have to go bankrupt. That's all there is to it. And I would have to believe me, obviously. There's a lot more smarter people in this world than I am, and they know that. They understand that. They have their money invested with that in mind. They understand the risk. So it's not going to be, it isn't going to be a complete shell shocker in my opinion. So I just tell people, have that somewhere in your marketing plan. Understand that you are going to get some headline trading off of this risk. And the guys that want to be bearish and make their living off being bearish, they're going to really stoke the fires. And that's the way this is going to go down, and that's the way this game's going to be played, I would say, from now until, until the end of time, it looks like, because I don't see any way out of this hole that we're in right now. So, as I used to tell you, I tell you guys all the time, the letter played ball for a guy. He said, first rule of holes, when you're in one, stop digging. Well, I don't think the world governments have figured that rule out. So we continue to dig the hole deeper, and there continues to escalate issues and problems, but I think the world has finally come to some grips that that's what we're in, at least some of the smarter money, and they're going to learn to cope and deal with it as we move forward. You are going to see some speed bumps along the way. I call this a demographic tsunami in Japan. Funny story, Tom Willis, I'm traveling to South Dakota. Tom and I talked on the phone. We're just briefly talking. Tom, I'm getting right into conversation. Tom says, what's your favorite trade? We're talking agriculture the whole time, ethanol and corn and wheat. He says, what's your favorite trade? Chase is driving me. I just left Iowa, we were talking. I see Chase do it. I tell Tom, I said, I just went short the Japanese yen. This was about, I don't know, this was two and a half, 3 weeks ago. And I seen Chase look over at me like, what the hell? You're talking to Tom Will? What'd you tell him short the Japanese yen? You're talking agriculture with the guy and you throw a Japanese yen trade on him. So we and Tom were talking a little bit. I just think, and it's been a great trade, and we've done well with it. You might have to hold on to it for a while. It's a long-term play we're looking at. I just think the demographics in Asia, and especially Japan, are obviously to a tipping point. To give you an idea, we're talking right now in Japan, a third of the population's over the age of 65. They're saying that number is going to move, 40% in the next 10, 15 years. Whereas in India, you have 50% of the population under the age of 25. So as this population ages, the Japanese workers are being taxed more. The ones that are in the workplace who are having to support the elderly and have to support the older crowd that's emerging, they're being taxed and taxed and taxed. The Japanese savings rate has gone, I think they said 15, 20 years ago they were saving about 24%. Now they're saving about 3%. So there is no money really to save. Just as I told you, Italy making a 1% jump. If Japan experiences a 1% hike in rates, which they cannot afford to do, they're not going to allow it. You're going to see some serious hiccups.